Hi guys. So as Paulus introduced, my name is Ofer Tenenbaum and I'm with Smart Network. But before I tell you about Smart Network, I have to actually introduce Valley Internet, which is where everything started. Valley Internet is rural wireless ISP in California. We have approximately 80 relays covering an area of 2,200 square miles. And most of our relays are powered by solar and wind. We do have a few relays that are connected on AC, but most of the relays are on power on solar and wind is gaining a lot of momentum there. The network is mostly designed from MikroTik as the routing and switching gear. We have Ubiquity as a point to multi-point to the customers, and SAF Technica connecting our towers. You may have not heard about Valley Internet, but you might have heard about the devastating fires from October of last year in Napa. And I feel humbled by the disasters that were talked about earlier, but this was close to home. This was right in the neck of our woods. In fact, it was so much in the neck of our woods that we lost about 24 of our towers. Some of them were burnt partially, some were burnt completely. These are, some of the team members rebuilding the network, starting like the day of the fire. We started to rebuild, and what's important about this is that we lost several hundred customers that lost their homes. So that was pretty devastating to the network. Segue into our topic, what we're seeing right now in the market is a shift. And in fact, wildfires and disasters, even though they highlight the need for wireless ISPs, as my friend just talked about it, if the wired network is down, then wireless ISPs are one of the first ways to get communication back up. What we're seeing right now, though, is year after year, as fires burn through the valleys, copper is being replaced with fiber. In fact, so much that some of the people that their homes were rebuilt or rebuilding their homes that are miles and miles away, people that you would think they're just classic wireless ISP kind of customers, are being connected with fiber for $50 at 100 megabits. So it's an interesting change in the market. And in fact, that's not the only change that we're seeing. We're seeing LTE becoming truly fast, finally delivering on the promise. We're seeing folks connecting with LTE between 30, 40, even 100 megabit. We're seeing some of the low altitude projects becoming a reality. Some of them are still, up in the clouds and maybe a dream, but definitely low altitude satellites and maybe even some of the Loon projects from Google are going to deliver global coverage to internet in a global way to all corners of the world. And even our market is becoming faster. So all the 5G AC technology that MikroTik is shipping, the Cambium, the Ubiquity, is allowing us to compete. But I'm just throwing it up on the screen so that you see that we're operating in an environment that the market is changing. In fact, to summarize it, it's changing in a way that, first of all, the technology is becoming more prevalent. So if we, folks like you guys, were the only available network provider in certain areas, now there are lots of other providers in that area and from different technologies. Also, internet is becoming a commodity. Commodity means low cost. It's something that people expect to just get at a funded or subsidized way, and that's just a reality. And as we said, the technology is delivering the goods. Both the fixed wireless, LTE, low altitude, all these technologies are actually delivering fast internet that is catching up with the time. Those market changes are bringing with them challenges, because if technology is available everywhere, that means that new markets are harder to capture. It means that growth is difficult to achieve. If the internet is a commodity, that means that you have pressure on your pricing. And if everything is fast, and you can't just say, oh, well, they're slow, we're faster, then you have really steep competition. Where there are challenges, there's always opportunities. If you can grow horizontally, you can grow the ARPU vertically. You can, add added value services that increase the ARPU, or you can work on your chart. If the pricing, if you can't improve the top line, you can try to improve the bottom line. And that's one of the things that I'm going to talk to you about in more details. And of course, competition is good. Competition makes us be on our toes, service our customers better, answer those emails, come up with a more creative solution. The strategy to seize on these opportunities go through the ARPU, which we said, we could increase pricing, but that's a little difficult. So we could reduce the churn. And that's a sure strategy to get the ARPU to go up. The AMPU, which is kind of like an abbreviation that we are not used to here, which is average margin per customer, and we want that to go up, is typically impacted by the average cost per customer. Again, AMPU and ACPU, not really talked about enough, and in this market environment, they're super important. This is how they look like. So ARPU, the one that we always refer to, basically minus the cost equals the margin. And that's the bottom line. That's really what we want to focus on in an environment that is so challenging. At Valley Internet, that wireless ISP that Smart Network was born from, we look at these costs as, you could call them the cost of goods, even though on the P&L usually there's only the network cost. If you want the true cost of goods for the network, then this is the list. And as a base for them, I listed the ones that impact Valley Internet. Obviously, in different countries and different pricing environments, those numbers will change, but I'm giving you our example. Some of you will say, well, it's a whole lot cheaper or a whole lot more expensive in my environment. Somehow the numbers eventually work out the same. So the top one is the total capacity that we have, plus the senior network engineers operating the network, the tech support, hourly rate, truck rolls. Truck rolls are the Achilles heel. I see smiles here. The Achilles heel of this industry. Rolling a truck in the rural environment is a killer to the cash flow. It just costs so much money in wear and tear, in time, in equipment, in supplies. That's just like all you want to do is how can we avoid truck rolls? Upgrades, as you all know, MikroTik and the rest of the industry makes sure that every 3 years we have to upgrade the entire network because faster and newer technology. And we've been doing it for 15 years, and I can tell you that every 3 years, we somehow replace the entire technology. The churn, we keep it as low as we can, and for the last several years, we've been maintaining a fairly high ARPU in the industry. So here's our cost before a significant change that we did, and I'll show you, and I'll tell you about the change in a minute. So roughly, the cost per customer was roughly $53. And this is what we were able to achieve in just 2 years later. Now that may not sound like a lot. So if you look at where we actually made most of the change, right, in the tech support and in the truck rolls, so that may not sound like a lot, but those $8 for our small company equals $250,000 a year. And in fact, if you ask me, I would say that because of those changes, we were able to survive the October fires. If I didn't have that margin, and with roughly 10% of, I think 300 customers went away, 10% of our customers just burned their, homes burned, and all the efforts and time and money that we had to spend on rebuilding the network. If I didn't have those kind of margins, the company would have been gone. So those changes that we implemented in order to achieve that improvement in the margin of the ARPU instead of the ARPU itself were significant. And we did that. I have to say thank you to MikroTik. And in fact, on our network, it looks like this. We call it the smart adapter, but it's really basically a MikroTik at every single subscriber home. I don't care if we use Ubiquiti to connect them wirelessly or SAF or Cambium. We have a rule now, and that is every home, every subscriber has to have a MikroTik unit, and we'll go into why. This is how we deploy it. First of all, it's mandatory now. In the beginning, it was, well, we'll see, and all sorts of things like that, but now it's mandatory. And if we manage the customer's network, it's a gateway, and if we don't, it's a bridge in front of their gateway. We go from the 750s all the way to the CCR, depends on the customer. Now I'm going to check the diagrams, otherwise Yanis is going to be upset that we choose the wrong units. But we definitely go with the residential at the HAPs and all the way to the CCRs, to the higher customers. But what's more important is how we use it. We made it so that the MikroTik allows the customer to replace their own router with a DHCP PNP plug and play. We actually relay the DHCP. If they try to bypass that, they can't get any internet, they can't get into the VLAN. It's completely separating our network from them. But we also don't need to support them when they want to replace a router on the weekend when they run to Best Buy in California and just like get a new router every 2 weeks. The remote troubleshooting, this is what we'll focus on next, and it's really important. That is, for us, that's intelligence. And that intelligence changed the nature of how we troubleshoot, cut down our costs in a significant way, and we use all the tools, everything in Windbox that we can, whether it's testing, whether we look at the interface, we look at the CRC errors, FCS, everything that we can to try to diagnose what's wrong with it before we roll a truck. In fact, I have a little slogan. Everybody knows an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I call it a router board per customer keeps the truck rolls away, and that's my slogan for the cash flow. Here's some actual results. So before and after. So 2015 to 2017, tech support calls about my network is slow and stuff like this went from an average of 45 minutes spread over 6 days to 5 minutes solved in the first day. Without having a MikroTik in every home, it was a disaster. Truck rolls, false positive. False positives for me is the truck rolls where you send it because you couldn't troubleshoot it remotely, and then you go there and you found out that the freaking dog disconnected the cable. Or somebody plugged in, some RJ11 to the router WAN and they don't know why it's not working. It doesn't matter what, but the false positive truck rolls went from 50% to 5%. There's always going to be some sort of a reason why we send a truck roll, and it turns out to be something we could have troubleshooted remotely, but with having a MikroTik on site, this significantly changed. Now, some of you may ask, why not use the CPE? And I think Paulus sort of answered the question when he was demoing the 60 gigahertz, because you really can't check using the physical connection that is, connecting the customer. That's just, you're going to kill the CPU of that, of that antenna, and you're not going to get reliable results. Sometimes you're actually going to physically disconnect because of CPU and choking the pipe. So we can't do that. And you know what? If you don't have a MikroTik, the other tools that are out there, and we like Ubiquiti, but I'm sorry, their speed test is UDP. It is as unreliable as it gets. You run the internal speed test, 130 megabit. Customer goes to speedtest.net, 10 megabit. Well, of course, if you're going to run UDP and you're not going to check, for acknowledgement, you're not going to get really what the network can do. And so having a dedicated troubleshooting, our agent at the customer demarcation is super critical. Here's just real quick support examples. I wanted to just pick from the last 30 days. That's like just recently a third party that called us saying the router is down. We performed end-to-end testing. We told them everything is checking well. They're like, when are you sending a tech? When are you sending a tech? And we're like, no, we're not sending a tech because the problem is not on our end. So they end up sending their tech. The third party goes to the winery, and they figured out that somehow their managed firewall downloaded the wrong configuration that just blocked all the traffic on the WAN. Fine. That's their problem. We saved a truck roll. Second example, this was a tractor parts manufacturer. He was seeing connectivity issues, latency, and this was actually after we upgraded them. So we're checking, we're looking at the vitals of the interface, everything looks good. I have to admit, we actually did roll a truck here because it was a VIP, they're not far from us. We rolled a truck and we found out that the customer, because we upgraded them, he had it on 100 megabit negotiations, our new equipment was 1 gig, and it was just causing the manual negotiations on their side didn't work. But even though I didn't save the truck roll, I saved the customer, and that's super important. And finally, another case, just a residential home where customers, my network is slow. Turns out with enough testing, and we were able to test latency on the LAN, we found out that they're just, I can't believe it, 802.11n is so historical and so old, but basically we recommended upgrading their LAN to AC technology, and sure enough, that fixed the problem, and we got both an upgrade, a one-time upgrade, and we kept a customer happy. These are two folks from Valley Internet, our general manager and our tier 1, tier 2, one of them, and this is in their words, smart adapters, meaning a router board, okay, have severely decreased truck rolls. It's been so long now, I think we forgot the good old days. Good old days is rolling a truck and finding out that you shouldn't have rolled a truck. And this is our tier 1, tier 2. It's 90% decrease in time spent on slow speed calls. The frequency of them decreases, and the time spent on each call decreases because there are fewer variables. So moving from there to the next level, with a MikroTik at every customer, we thought, what if we could take it to the next level? What if we could make the support call not happen in the first place? Okay, if saving 90% on our cost is not enough, let's improve the margin even further. And clearly, Windbox is kind of too intelligent, if you will. You can't really give that to customer. It's kind of like saying anyone that drives a car can look under the hood. And yes, some of you can open an engine and troubleshoot it, but the majority can't. And while this is not rocket science, it does require a lot of troubleshooting. We're forgetting that we're mostly network engineers here. We're mostly people that are very familiar with that. You can't really give that power, those tools to the user at home. And it's not that simple to take this and simplify this to the consumer. In fact, simple is very difficult. And this is, what you're seeing on the screen right now is a representation of a multi-year effort that we tried to do exactly that. We tried to give the end user tools to troubleshoot the network on their own so they don't call us. The left side kind of looked like a Windbox. It's sort of like where we started. Then we developed a way to look into the interface of the MikroTik by proxying everybody at their home were just typing bandwidth.me. It would redirect and look at the web fig of their bridge or router, and it showed them their connection. But both of the left side seriously created a lot of tech support. People were just, asking more questions, and the solution was just yielding more work, and it didn't really work. What does that mean? My network is KP, BBS, and stuff like that. So then eventually we took the effort and put 8 people aside for 2 years and developed what is now, I would say, an Appleization of the Windbox, if you will. And that's Smart Network. Smart Network really has 2 sides to it. It has the user app, and it has the dashboard for the ISP or the network provider, the system integrator, and kind of, if you will, it's a NMS in creation. It's a way to manage massive amount of MikroTik routers, both make them smart, upgrade them, but not just upgrade and run scripts, but also give all the vital signs in one dashboard. The smart app, that's something I'm just going to show you, but keep in mind that what you are seeing, what I'm going to show you for a few minutes, is actually Windbox, just for the consumer. So let me go there. Okay, this is my iPhone in live. Just gonna log here into the app. I'm connecting to my home network. It's, what time is it in California? It's like 7:30. And what we're basically seeing is a real-time, or we will see, real-time representation of what's happening at my home right now. Let's go back to the home page. So on the home page, what you're seeing, there's a lot of usage there. Hold on 1 second. There's a lot of Netflix. Okay. So what we could do, okay, that's my wife, and I see two Netflix running. So we can actually go into Linda's computer and change her resolution right now to SD for... She won't notice the difference because it's on the small screen. And see, okay, that's better. And then the Apple TV is also doing Netflix. I'm telling you, every time I travel, it's like free zone there. The Apple TV will put it on HD, for example. All we're doing is creating simple queues or a queue tree, depending on what we're doing, and that's all we're doing. But and now the bandwidth should kind of drop a little bit, so it's not going to be that congested. So on the home page, we give users kind of like the basic things that they want to see. If your ISP has data caps, so the top would show you actually your data cap. We don't have data caps. If your ISP has speed, so you could see the speed differences. No Wi-Fi here. Let me quit this and go back. And you can also face ID. And this is important because you really don't want the kids to have access to the smart app. So what you see is the real-time utilization in the circle, and then below that you see, okay, Carmel's iPhone is using social network during any time. That comes from the app. You can actually scroll and see the last 90 minutes, so you could see what the utilization on the network is. You could see if the network health, obviously it's peak hours, so it's really busy right now there. I could set up notifications. I think we got notification that Carmel is using social media, and that's because I probably have notifications here. So I want to see when Carmel is doing video streaming or social media anytime. The other thing that we have here is speed tests. Our speed tests, as you well aware, is a lot of customers are addicted to speed tests. I swear to God, if there's opioids and there's speedtest.net addiction. And what we allow people to do is to run speed tests on the network itself. And what's nice about this is that it runs the speed test from the wired connection to your edge of the network. So we kind of eliminate the variable of, and some of you have been there, like, hi customer, so did you run the speed test from your iPhone? And how far is your iPhone from your access point? And is there anything else running on your network, et cetera, et cetera? Our speed test is so smart because it runs, first of all, it runs on the wired. And second, when I run the speed test, which I'm going to do right now and people are going to complain at home, we're actually choking the network. We're taking a snapshot of their usage a minute before we run the speed test. And then we run the speed test. And then we calculate how much they were using, how much we're getting right now, and then we deduct it and put it all together on the screen so that we get real results with the utilization. And during that time, yes, it does screw a little bit the network there because we're choking it to 10% of what is available. So as you could see, I'm getting 16.4 on 9, and 13.5 is being used. And that was captured just before the speed test was running. So I can go for a lot longer here. If anyone wants to talk to me about smart network, we can. I just want you to remember that what you're looking at is an Appleized Windbox, and it's only possible because we put a MikroTik at every customer. Going back to the presentation, sort of what I just said is like the different parts of the app are essentially MikroTik router OS capabilities being called to with an API, with a very robust API that the router OS is giving us, and then some. Grant you, this is a very big system, so there's a lot of things that are not router OS, but we couldn't have done this without having the router OS, the API, and a MikroTik at every customer. Finally, the ROI. ROI is very simple. How much you gained minus the cost of the investment divided by that investment. And these are the numbers flat out there. So we saved $250,000. We invested about $154,000, which includes the cost of every MikroTik in every customer, and even what Valley Internet would pay Smart Network to get that, divided by 154, that's 62% return on investment. And that's how we run the business, and that's why Valley Internet is alive today, and that's why we're thriving. And without being emotional, I'm just saying thank you, MikroTik. That's it. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm ahead of schedule, so I'll be out there later. Yes. Is this a product that you actually sell for not? Yes. Yeah. We already have an integrator in Canada that is using it, ISP in South Africa that is testing it, and Valley Internet is a real customer of it. So all of the Valley Internet, thousands of customers are being migrated to the smart network with a MikroTik under the hood. And there's quite a few other leads being, testing this there. Good question. So I can tell you this. Right now it runs on iOS, but I finally ordered my Samsung 9 because the Android is coming. So probably 60 days. And I'm sure that our developers are watching it. And the question was about Android, just in case, Pavel and Igor, you didn't hear. Thank you, guys.